A very warm welcome to this Sunday sermon, Britain's favourite Sunday sermon. And what a week we've had amongst all the political chaos and noise, the anxiety, the fury about the latest immigration numbers, the calm, reassuring presence of the top people in the Home Office in front of the Home Office Select Committee. Just imagine for a moment, though, that you're the managing director of a division of a big company, you've had a few problems, things are not going very well, and you've been hauled up to see the directors and the shareholders of the business, frankly, to explain yourself, to explain what's going wrong, how you're going to put it right. Surely you're going to do a bit of work, a bit of preparation, you're going to gen up on all the answers, you're going to come up with some reassuring solutions, you'll bring some people with you to help you with some numbers and things, but you are going to be well briefed because you know that, frankly, if you don't perform, if you don't give some confidence to your directors, to your shareholders, then you're going to be held accountable. You could be fired. You could be literally out on your arse for incompetence, for negligence, for failing to do your job properly. That's in the real world. Yes, the world of the private sector that has to perform or fails. Surely it should be the same in the public sector. I mean, after all, we the taxpayer are their customer. And the elected representatives, the ministers, the Secretary of State, are the equivalent of their directors. And we, the taxpayers, are the shareholders, represented by MPs, for example, on this Home Office Select Committee. So when the great big man himself, yes, the permanent secretary no less, one Sir Matthew Rycroft, KCMG, CBE, good luck working out what all those titles mean, but clearly a very highly honoured, titled, serious person. He comes along with his deputy and no less than six officials to help him. And you would think that he'd be well briefed because, yes, there's been a bit of a crisis. There's the small boats crisis, illegal asylum seekers. There's the Rwanda crisis. There's a huge backlog of over 150,000 asylum applications. All of this stuff. And then there's the huge surge, the trebling from the 2019 manifesto commitment, the trebling of the numbers arriving lawfully on a net basis of lawful immigration. There's plenty of anxiety. You'd want to have the answers at your fingertips. Do your homework. Be prepared. Because guess what? Some of those MPs on that select committee, they're probably going to ask one or two a little bit tricksy, difficult questions. Yes. Why? Because they've got some furious constituents who feel that they've been completely and utterly led up the garden path, misled at best, lied to at worst by a government that promised to reduce immigration and has yet deliberately seen it go through the roof. So if you're the boss of the Home Office, the permanent secretary, you're a knight of the realm, all sorts of letters after your name. You want to be seen as someone who's competent, who's on it, who recognises something's not gone quite right, but don't worry, sirs. I've got all the answers. This is the solution. This is how I can reassure you. This is how we're going to put it right. So we had the scene this week. The scene was set. The angry MPs on behalf of their furious constituents. If you haven't seen this clip or these clips of the Home Office Select Committee grilling Sir Matthew Rycroft, KCMG, CBE no less, please take a look. It's extraordinary. It's absolutely shocking. Here is a man with all these crises within the Home Office regarding illegal immigration and indeed lawful immigration. And yet he sits there, arrogant, complacent, surprised that the MPs might ask him some tricky questions. Not a single figure to his fingertips or usable. Utterly unable to answer any single questions posed by the MPs. One MP asked a relatively straightforward question, you might expect. How many people whose asylum applications have been rejected in the last week, month, 6 months, year, 3 years, how many have actually been deported, have been sent home because their application has been rejected? Answers were expected. Nothing was forthcoming, literally nothing. The Permanent Secretary looked to the Deputy Permanent Secretary to his right. The Deputy Permanent Secretary looked at the 6 officials in the row behind. They all looked at their files and their papers, and they shuffled and they shuffled and they squirmed and they wriggled. Nothing, absolutely nothing was forthcoming. 0 answers. No idea whatsoever. Another MP thought that he'd perhaps ask, how was it going in terms of processing the applications, and what happens if someone is processed, or what happens if they might be lost, for example? And it turned out, extraordinarily, that the Deputy Permanent Secretary confirmed, he did have a figure to his fingertips, that over 17,000 asylum seekers who had submitted applications had then not turned up on Zoom, by the way. They don't actually have to turn up. Had not turned up on Zoom for their interview. You might assume that someone might check. Where are they? Are you okay? Why were you late? Shall we rearrange the meeting? No. Just been literally abandoned. They've just put a line through the application, and those people have all disappeared. That's 1 in 10 of the backlog. 17,000 applications disappeared. Just struck off. So when you hear the government ministers say, we've got the backlog down, we're doing really well, what a load of absolute tripe, gibberish and garbage, for heaven's sake. The truth is, they've lost them. They are just milling around the United Kingdom. We've no idea who they are. We've no idea where they've come from. We've no idea what criminality they may or may not have been involved with. We've no idea whether or not they had any terrorist background whatsoever. And we don't know how they're working. They haven't got national insurance numbers. So you can assume that they are operating in the black market for cash, depressing the wages of tax-paying British citizens. This is an absolute scandal exposed in an arrogant, entitled, complacent, surprised way by the bosses of the Home Office. If you thought that was bad, those 2 things, just try this. Because another of the MPs on the committee asked, well, how much money is still being sent to Rwanda, given that we've already sent 140 million quid of money, pounds, shillings and pence, but we don't seem to have sent any asylum seekers. We're not allowed to, apparently, according to the Supreme Court. Well, here was interesting, because the Permanent Secretary admitted that he knew the answer. Oh yes, this was good news. Encouraging, no less. He knew the answer. That actually, not only have we sent 140 million quid, we were still sending them money. We're still sending them money. You might ask, what for? We haven't sent them any migrants. What do they need more cash for? Well, we don't know. He knows how much money this year is being sent, but he wouldn't answer. He wouldn't give the MPs the answer. No, he said, you'll just have to wait your turn. You pesky MPs, on behalf of you troublesome constituents who pay my salaries through your taxes, you'll have to jolly well wait until the middle of next year when we produce the accounts. And there, if you dig around, probably at about page 150 of the Home Office accounts, you might find the answer. I know the answer, but I'm not going to tell you because you don't deserve to be told now, even though you pay my wages. And I'm here at a committee to answer questions in a transparent, accountable way. What a damn outrage. Utterly, utterly absurd. Here's the thing. Anybody that had behaved like that in the private sector would have been out on their arse, out on their ear, fired that day or the next day by the chief exec and certainly demanded to be fired by the shareholders. If I was in charge of the Home Office, that bloke, in fact the pair of them, would be fired the same week for utter gross incompetence and negligence. Do you think Calamity Cleverly, our new Home Secretary, will fire them for incompetence? Not a chance. This is the world we've got to. Some of you may remember the early 1980s, that very funny series, Yes, Minister. And the permanent secretary of the department was one Sir Humphrey Appleby. Wasn't he brilliant? Absolutely priceless. Let me tell you, he looked positively competent and reassuring, as opposed to Sir Matthew Rycroft, KCMG CBE, who looked utterly, woefully incompetent, useless, arrogant and complacent. There's no question in my mind. He should be fired, his deputy should be fired, and some new people brought in to shake up that woeful Home Office department. And with that, here endeth Britain's favourite Sunday sermon.